Welcome back to the channel, everyone. Have you ever looked through an old jar of coins, a family collection, or a handful of vintage nickels and wondered whether one ordinary-looking coin could be worth a life-changing amount of money? Today, we are taking a close look at a particularly interesting piece of American coinage. Coin number 1. This 1949 Jefferson nickel with no mint mark, especially an example described as being in very fine condition. The coin is more than 7 decades old, and its history connects directly to the United States during the years immediately following World War II. In this video, we will examine its history, design, mint mark, condition, possible varieties, collector appeal, and the reasons certain exceptional Jefferson nickels can bring dramatically higher prices. We will also discuss the claimed $98,000 market value carefully, because a headline value should never automatically be interpreted as the normal selling price for every example of the same date and mint mark. The first thing to understand about the 1949 Jefferson nickel is that a no-mint mark example was struck at the Philadelphia Mint. In 1949, Philadelphia produced approximately 60 pounds, 652,000 Jefferson nickels, and these coins did not receive a mint mark. The coin measures about 21.2 millimeters in diameter and weighs approximately 5 grams, with the traditional Jefferson nickel composition of 75% copper and 25% nickel. That means when you see a 1949 Jefferson nickel without a letter such as D or S near the Monticello side, the absence of a mint mark is not automatically an error. Instead, it is the normal identifying characteristic of a Philadelphia minted coin from that period. That detail is extremely important for anyone searching through old nickels. Modern collectors are accustomed to seeing mint marks on many American coins, but United States coinage practices have changed over the decades. For this issue, a 1949 Jefferson nickel without a mint mark is exactly what we would expect from Philadelphia production. So if you discover one, do not immediately assume that the missing letter is a rare minting mistake. The real question is whether the coin possesses something else that makes it unusual, such as exceptional preservation, a scarce die characteristic, an important variety, strong strike quality, or especially valuable full steps detail. The Jefferson nickel itself has an important place in American numismatic history. The series began in 1938, replacing the Buffalo nickel, and was designed by Felix Schlag. The obverse features a portrait of Thomas Jefferson facing left, while the reverse presents Monticello, Jefferson's famous Virginia home. The words United States of America, E pluribus unum, 5 cents, and Monticello surround the reverse design. These details make the coin instantly recognizable, but they also provide collectors with several areas to inspect when determining condition and quality. Now let's talk about the 1949 date. This coin was produced during a fascinating period in American history. World War II had ended only a few years earlier, and the United States was entering a new era of economic growth, technological development, and social change. The Jefferson nickel had already undergone the extraordinary wartime composition change that occurred from 1942 through 1945, when silver was incorporated into the alloy because nickel was strategically needed for the war effort. By 1949, the standard copper-nickel composition had returned. Therefore, a normal 1949 Jefferson nickel is not a Silver War nickel simply because it is old. When you hold a 1949 Jefferson nickel, the first feature you should inspect is the obverse portrait of Thomas Jefferson. Look closely at the hair, forehead, cheek, jawline, and the lettering around the portrait. On a circulated very fine coin, you should expect noticeable wear on the highest portions of the design. However, the major details should remain clearly visible. The date should be readable, and the lettering should generally be strong enough to identify the coin without difficulty. The condition described as very fine, commonly abbreviated VF, represents a circulated coin with substantial detail remaining but visible evidence of wear. This is important because condition can dramatically influence collectible value. A very fine coin is not an uncirculated coin. It has spent time in circulation, and its surfaces have experienced contact with other coins, pockets, counters, and other objects. For that reason, it would be misleading to assume that every 1,949 Jefferson nickel in very fine condition is automatically worth tens of thousands of dollars. In fact, published price guides provide a much more cautious picture for ordinary 1,949 Jefferson nickels. For example, Gainesville Coins currently lists circulated examples around $1 in very fine condition, while PCGS's current price guide focuses on much higher grades for its detailed market listings and shows substantial premiums as quality increases. This difference between ordinary examples and exceptional certified coins is one of the most important lessons for anyone watching coin value videos online. The term full steps, or FS, is especially important for Jefferson nickel collectors. On the reverse of the coin, Monticello has a series of steps at its base. Because the steps are located in an area that can suffer from weak striking and contact marks, finding a Jefferson nickel with exceptionally complete and uninterrupted step detail can be difficult. For certain dates, full steps coins can be worth dramatically more than ordinary examples. PCGS's current guide illustrates this difference for the 1949 issue. The 1949 Jefferson nickel has much higher values in its full steps category than in ordinary grades, with the guide listing values that climb substantially at the highest grades. This is why you should never evaluate a vintage Jefferson nickel simply by looking at its date. Two coins can both say 1949 and both have no mint mark, yet their values can be radically different. One might be a normal circulated coin worth a modest amount, while another could be a superbly preserved, professionally certified example with exceptional strike quality and rare characteristics. Let's now turn the coin over and inspect the reverse. This is where Monticello dominates the design. Look carefully at the building, the columns, the dome, and especially the steps beneath the structure. If the coin is genuinely very fine, you should see significant detail throughout the building, although the smallest design elements will show wear. The steps may not be complete, and that is perfectly normal for a circulated example. What collectors want to see in exceptionally valuable Jefferson nickels is sharp, uninterrupted detail in this area. Another feature to examine is the rim and edge. A genuine circulated 1949 nickel should show normal signs of use. Look for unusually severe damage, dents, scratches, corrosion, cleaning, or other alterations. A coin that has been aggressively polished may appear shiny, but can actually be less desirable to serious collectors. Natural surfaces are generally preferable to artificially cleaned surfaces, especially when dealing with old United States coins. Next coin number 2. This 1961 Jefferson nickel with D mint mark, described here as being in red condition with a claimed current market value of $67.00. At first glance, this may appear to be an ordinary Jefferson nickel, but collectors know that the story behind an old coin can be much more complicated. Date, mint mark, condition, strike quality, surface preservation, varieties, and certification can all have a major impact on what a coin is actually worth. The 1961 Jefferson nickel is an interesting issue from the middle of the classic Jefferson nickel series. The coin features Thomas Jefferson on the obverse and Monticello on the reverse, continuing the design introduced in 1938. A 1961 nickel with D mint mark was struck at the Philadelphia Mint, because Philadelphia coins from this period normally carried D mint mark. According to published references, Philadelphia produced more than 73 million Jefferson nickels dated 1961, making the issue an important but not automatically rare date. This is the first major point collectors should understand. The absence of a mint mark on a 1961 with D Jefferson nickel is normal and does not by itself indicate an error. The portrait of Thomas Jefferson is one of the most recognizable images in American coinage. Designed by Felix Schlag, the Jefferson nickel replaced the Buffalo nickel beginning in 1938. Jefferson's connection to American history made him a fitting subject for a coin that would remain in circulation for generations. When looking at a 1961 nickel, pay attention to the highest points of Jefferson's hair, cheek, forehead, and jaw. Wear in these areas can help determine whether the coin is circulated or uncirculated. Now let's talk about the unusual term red condition. Unlike Lincoln cents, where the designations brown, brown, and red are commonly used by professional grading services because copper surfaces can retain or lose their original reddish color, Jefferson nickels are not normally graded using the same official red designation. Therefore, when someone describes a 1961 Jefferson nickel as being in red condition, it is better understood as a description of the coin's appearance rather than a standard Jefferson nickel grading category. This distinction is extremely important. A shiny or reddish-looking Jefferson nickel is not automatically worth tens of thousands of dollars. The color, luster, originality, strike, surface quality, and certified grade all need to be considered together. A coin can have attractive color but still have scratches, cleaning, environmental damage, or other problems that reduce its value. This is one of the most fascinating aspects of coin collecting. Two coins can have exactly the same date and mint designation, but have dramatically different values. One might have spent decades circulating through stores and pockets, while another might have been protected almost immediately after leaving the mint. One may have scratches and weak details, while another may have pristine surfaces and outstanding luster. To an inexperienced observer, both coins may simply look like 1961 nickels. To a professional collector, they can be completely different numismatic objects. Look closely at the steps leading up to Monticello. Jefferson nickel collectors pay very close attention to these steps because strong, complete step detail can indicate an exceptional strike. Coins with exceptionally complete steps may qualify for a full steps designation when submitted to a grading service, and this can have a major effect on collector demand for certain dates and grades. For that reason, if you have a 1961 with Jefferson nickel that appears unusually sharp, the reverse deserves just as much attention as the obverse. Examine the columns, windows, roofline, dome, and steps. Do not use harsh chemicals or attempt to polish the coin to make these details look brighter. Cleaning can damage the original surfaces and reduce the coin's desirability. The edge should also be inspected. A Jefferson nickel has a plain edge rather than the reeded edge found on many American dimes and quarters. Check for unusual damage, filing, cuts, or alterations. An authentic old nickel should have the expected physical characteristics of the denomination, including the correct approximate diameter, thickness, and weight. A standard Jefferson nickel weighs approximately 5 grams and has a diameter of about 21.2 millimeters. These measurements can be useful as part of an authenticity check, although weight and dimensions alone cannot prove that a coin is genuine. If you suspect that your coin could be extremely valuable, professional authentication is the safest route. Another major factor is surface preservation. A high-grade coin should have clean, original-looking surfaces with minimal contact marks. Jefferson nickels can be particularly challenging because their broad surfaces can easily collect marks from contact with other coins. Even a coin that was never heavily circulated can develop small scratches or abrasions simply from being stored in bags or transported at the mint. This is why professional grading can be so important. A grading service evaluates the coin's condition according to established standards and assigns a grade. It also examines the coin for authenticity and potentially important characteristics. A professionally certified coin with a recognized high grade is much easier to compare with auction records and published market information than an uncertified coin described simply as red or beautiful. The 1961 date is particularly interesting because it comes from an era when Jefferson nickels were produced in large quantities for everyday circulation. These were not intended to be rare collector pieces when they were made. They were ordinary 5-cent coins designed to serve commerce. Millions entered circulation, passing through supermarkets, gas stations, vending machines, banks, and countless other businesses. Imagine the journey of a 1961 with D. Jefferson nickel. It could have left the Philadelphia Mint in a large production batch and entered circulation somewhere in the United States. It might have been used to buy a newspaper, a cup of coffee, candy, or another small purchase. It could have traveled from one city to another, passed through hundreds of hands, and eventually been placed into a drawer or jar. More than 6 decades later, it may still exist as a small physical reminder of that era. This historical journey is one reason collectors enjoy Jefferson nickels. Even when a particular coin is not rare, it can still provide a tangible connection to the past. The date tells us when it was struck. The design tells us about the people and places America chose to honor. The condition tells us something about how the coin was treated after leaving the mint. Now consider what happens when an old coin escapes circulation almost completely. Instead of becoming scratched, worn, and dull, it may retain much of its original mint luster. If it also has an excellent strike and strong Monticello steps, it can become significantly more desirable. The population of coins surviving in that level of preservation is much smaller than the original mintage. That is the basic principle behind many high-value coins: survival rarity. A coin can have a large original mintage, but still become scarce in exceptional grades. Conversely, a low mintage coin can remain relatively affordable if many examples survive in comparable condition and collector demand is limited. The term full steps deserves another close look. On Jefferson nickels, the steps beneath Monticello can be weak because of die wear or insufficient striking pressure. When the steps are complete and uninterrupted, advanced collectors may consider the coin significantly more desirable. A full steps designation can therefore change the market dramatically, particularly when combined with a high numerical grade. If your 1961 with D nickel appears to have complete steps, use good lighting and magnification. Do not assume that a few visible lines automatically qualify as full steps. Professional grading standards can be strict, and interruptions from contact marks or strike weakness can prevent the designation. If the coin looks exceptional, professional certification can help determine exactly what you have. Another important consideration is originality. A coin that has been cleaned, polished, buffed, or chemically treated may look bright and attractive to a beginner, but experienced collectors can often recognize altered surfaces. Original mint luster is different from artificial shine. A naturally preserved coin generally has a more desirable surface than a coin that has been aggressively cleaned. If you have a potentially valuable 1961 with D Jefferson nickel, the safest advice is simple: do not clean it. Do not use toothpaste, baking soda, metal polish, vinegar, household chemicals, abrasive cloths, or other homemade methods. These treatments can permanently alter the surface. Once the original surface has been damaged, it cannot simply be restored by putting the coin back into a holder. This does not mean that valuable 1961 with D Jefferson nickels do not exist. High-grade examples, especially those with desirable strike characteristics such as full steps, can be worth considerably more than common circulated pieces. But the precise amount depends on the individual coin, grade, designation, market conditions, and verified sales. Next, coin number 3. This 1969 with D Jefferson nickel, described here as being in black condition, with a claimed market value of $57.00. This is an especially interesting coin because the 1969 with D issue has a fascinating history, a large mintage, and one extremely rare characteristic that has produced major auction results: the full steps designation. Before we go any further, however, it is important to make one thing clear. That large mintage is one of the most important facts about this coin. If you find a 1969D Jefferson nickel in your pocket change, the presence of the D mint mark does not automatically mean you have a rare coin. In fact, the 1969D remains relatively common in circulated grades. NGC's current guide indicates that circulated examples are generally worth only around face value, while pristine uncirculated examples can bring substantially more. So why does the 1969 with D Jefferson nickel receive so much attention from serious collectors? The answer is found on the reverse of the coin, particularly around the steps of Monticello. The Jefferson nickel's reverse features Monticello, the Virginia home of Thomas Jefferson. Underneath the building are several horizontal steps. To the casual observer, these lines may appear to be a minor design feature. To Jefferson nickel specialists, however, they can be one of the most important areas on the entire coin. When those steps are sharply struck and remain complete and uninterrupted, the coin may qualify for a full steps or FS designation. On certain dates, this designation can dramatically increase the coin's rarity and value. That is an extraordinary result for a 5-cent coin. Imagine that for a moment. A coin originally released into circulation for just 5 cents eventually became valuable enough to sell for tens of thousands of dollars. This is exactly why advanced collectors examine Jefferson nickels so carefully. The difference between an ordinary example and an exceptionally rare example can be enormous. Now let's address the phrase black condition. Unlike terms such as good, very fine, extremely fine, about uncirculated and mint state, black condition is not a standard numerical grading category used by the major professional grading services. A 1969 with D nickel might develop dark or black-looking surfaces because of natural toning, environmental exposure, storage conditions, contamination or damage. Dark coloration by itself does not establish rarity or value. In fact, collectors should be cautious when they encounter a coin described simply by a color. The color can be interesting, but the most important questions remain. What is the coin's grade? Are the surfaces original? Is the coloration natural? Is there damage? Is the strike strong? Does it have full steps? Has it been professionally authenticated and graded? These questions are far more important than simply saying the coin is black. A natural dark patina can sometimes add character to an old coin, but severe blackening caused by corrosion or environmental damage can hurt the coin's value. If a coin has been chemically treated to create a dark appearance, collectors may consider that undesirable. Therefore, never assume that a black or dark-colored Jefferson nickel is automatically rare. This is a fundamental lesson in coin collecting. A coin can have a mintage of more than 200 million pieces and still contain an exceptionally rare collectible category. The reason is that millions of coins may have been struck, but only a tiny number may survive with a specific combination of exceptional characteristics. Think about the manufacturing process. The dies used to strike coins gradually wear down. As dies become worn, the finest details become less distinct. The steps of Monticello are particularly vulnerable to weak strikes and die wear. As a result, producing a coin with sharp, uninterrupted steps becomes increasingly difficult. Now imagine finding one of the few coins that escape this problem. That is what advanced Jefferson nickel collectors are searching for. The 1969 with D is therefore an excellent example of conditional rarity. The coin is common in general, but exceptional specimens can be extraordinarily difficult to find. The story of the 1969 with D Jefferson nickel reminds us why coin collecting remains so fascinating. The coin began as a humble 5-cent piece, yet the finest known examples can become highly desirable collectibles. A tiny feature on the reverse can completely change the coin's status in the marketplace. That is what makes the Jefferson nickel series so exciting. If you enjoyed this detailed look at the 1969 with D Jefferson nickel, make sure to subscribe to the channel for more videos about rare American coins, valuable Jefferson nickels, Lincoln wheat pennies, Washington quarters, Roosevelt dimes, Kennedy half dollars, and other fascinating pieces of United States numismatic history. And remember, the next valuable coin might not be the one that looks the oldest or the most beautiful at first glance. Sometimes, the real treasure is hidden in a tiny detail on the reverse of a coin that millions of people once considered ordinary. Keep searching, keep learning, and most importantly, always verify the value before believing the price tag.